Hi, welcome back to a whole new episode of OffTrack with April. And today we have Koen Munneke.
Nailed it.
With us
Hi guys.
today.
Hi. Oh my God, you nailed it. That's so not my last name, but we're getting there.
Do you want to show us how you should probably pronounce it?
Sure. If that helps, our marketing manager, Koen Christiaan Munneke.
Munneke.
Don't even let it go. It's a Dutch name. Only 17 million people know how to say it right. It's okay.
Okay, so we have very limited time today. I will try my best to not go off track because I know I have the power.
We can. Yes, we can.
Okay, then let me just start off with the very first questions. It's all the questions I'm actually really curious to ask you.
Sure.
Yeah, I know you been in Asia for quite a long time, like 10 years plus, right? 12 years?
Right.
How many years?
13 years.
Yeah. So what makes you want to come to Asia in the first place though? Because back then when it's 10 years ago, I'm not trying to be mean or anything, but a white guy, I don't think a white guy would just be like, ooh, Asia, it's fun, let's become,
I feel so old now. This is great. So actually, the story is that I've been coming to Asia since I was 8 years old. And I'm 37 now. So my father used to work in South Asia a lot and on the Silk Road. So I would travel with my father to Sri Lanka, to Pakistan, to Jordan, Syria, all these interesting places. I doubled as a tuk-tuk driver in Sri Lanka at the age of 12 or something during a summer once while getting chased off of cricket fields by a big iguana. So I was in Asia a long time before I lived there. And then how did I end up in East Asia? Maybe that's the fairer thing to say. Was actually that I had always gone to South Asia, and then a friend of mine said, I'm trying to go to China, but all everybody I've talked to are people that never commit to anything. And I know, Koen, if you commit to something, you do it. So do you want to go to China with me? So the conclusion was, I'm not sure if he wanted to go to China with me, but he definitely needed a travel buddy. So I said sure. And then in 2007, we flew to Beijing. And then me and two of my friends, in the end, we took a train down to Hong Kong. And I thought China back then, it was messier than it is now, but less messy than it was before. It was amazing. I thought it was amazing. And then I went to Hong Kong, which was the last stop. And I was like, holy smokes. This is like a crazy city. And I was just like instantly
in love.
Yeah, I was like, wow, this is everything what Amsterdam is not. So I love it. And that's how it started. So I always jokingly say to that friend, I met him last week because I'm in Amsterdam right now. And I said to him, I always jokingly say, it's all your fault. If my parents are angry that I left for 13 years, it's all your fault. Because you said, let's go to China. So that's how it all started, actually.
I remember you tell me once you believe in Confucius and stuff, right? Does it have to, right? I still remember it. Does it have to do with your whole thing where you come to Asia? Or if you didn't do this whole thing, do you think you will have the same belief system or you would do the same thing?
So the Confucius thing is usually a joke, I say, because I spend more time in Europe because I feel like I should be there for my parents. And of course, as we know, the belief system of Confucius or the social system is really about respecting your elders. So in that sense, I sort of jokingly say that because when I talk to my elders, I have an extreme lack of respect sometimes. So in that sense, I'm bad at it. No, but I think that everybody has mixed values, right? So if you talk to your parents, you talk differently than when you talk to your friends. And if you talk to a non-Malaysian boss, you talk differently when you talk to a Malaysian boss. So that's sort of life. in general. And I like to think that after 13 years, I'm still definitely a part of me is definitely Dutch, but like I have taken at least influences out of being in Asia for 13 years into how I work. And depending on the environment that I talk to people, I can fall back on those experiences to at least to some extent adjust myself sometimes in situations if I need to. It's up to my staff to say whether I actually do that, but yeah, that's what I think at least.
Next time we have to do an interview with your parents.
Oh, my mom and my dad love talking, so yeah, they definitely will be off track for the rest of the week.
Do you have any interesting story, like one that you think is so fun, it will just come on top of your head every time you think back all this experience and stuff when you're in Asia, include your childhood Asia memory?
So many. So actually, I referenced it before. So just something, because there are so many stories. But there's a. I don't do favorites, but there's a good one. So my father is what they call a museologist. Yes, that is his job. So essentially, he makes expositions and to some extent makes the interiors of museums. So my father was hired in a city in Sri Lanka called Polonnaruwa, which is like the previous capital of Sri Lanka, to make a museum there. And it's still there today. So if you go to Sri Lanka post-COVID, go visit. Get that door money in. But anyway, so my father was there while building it, and I'd been to Sri Lanka about 10 times, and we would stay there for 2 months. And so like my parents raised me to sort of like not be elitist, so we would always just be part of the staff there. We would have dinner with all the staffing people, and in the breaks that they had, we would all be having like whatever curry on a piece of paper, like on the newspaper outside, all that sort of stuff. And so I would just be walking around there, this little blonde kid with the staff, and my parents would just let me go everywhere I wanted to. And then they would play cricket on breaks. So I joined their cricket games. And so it was like a little a sandy patch next to the actual museum that they were building, and I remember like playing, and obviously I was just bigger than the cricket bat, so it wasn't, I wasn't a natural, but I remember like playing, and then so they were like throwing the ball in, and I was like trying to hit it and stuff. And so suddenly like everybody sort of turned white and started running. And I was like, what the hell is going on? It was like one of these, it's Godzilla moments, which it was not. And I looked around, and this huge, I don't know what the name of the lizard is, but I think like it's like a kimono dragon, like really like 2.5 meters long.
Iguana?
Running onto the, like one of those like dragon lizards, like huge, like it was 2.5 meters long. Started running across the field, like into the cricket field. And those animals are actually really famous because they have like really strong tails, and they whip you, and they can like really wound you. They're actually really dangerous. So my lunch cricket match with museum staff got cut in half because of a dragon iguana lizard thing that started running after us because it came out of a pipe. So that was a funny story. And the next day I was on a tuk-tuk driving people around the village of Polonnaruwa, because the worksite had their own private tuk-tuk. And then I forgot that in Sri Lanka they drive on the left side, in Holland we drive on the right. So I was like on the wrong side, and I had like 3 Sri Lankans in the back, and the guy next to me, no, don't do it. So yeah, that was my one example. So my childhood was pretty crazy.
You're still alive. Good job.
I have other stories that you would challenge. Am I still alive? But yes, this was a good one for sure.
Wow, you should share more of this story during 1515. Just like cool story time.
Yeah, I feel like I'm going to be one of those granddads that I have like 5, 6 of the greatest hits. This is one of them. Actually, this is not one of them. This is not even in the top 6. Actually, now that I think of it, all the stories I usually tell to make myself look cool. And then hopefully my kids will be like, yes, granddad, we know you were touching the nipples of an army major in China. We know the story, like that sort of stuff.
What? That's the actual story?
No, that's another story that
what?
My
Can
father.
We just spend the rest of this listening to all the story?
Shall I tell you one more weird story?
Yes, please.
So my dad has a bit of a personality which is sort of all about challenging authority, So for example, my father would fly with us from Pakistan to Holland, and then at the airport the customs guys would be bored, and then they would start opening books to see if there's like illicit materials or whatever inside. And then my father would take the books and loudly start reading it out to the entire hold to make the custom people look bad. So that's how I was raised. So I have as you probably have noticed, I have a bit of a problem with authority. So the story was that I was hitchhiking in Western China in Xinjiang. Mm-hmm. And then I was on the back of a tractor, like literally a tractor with a 3-wheeler, like a farmer, with like a back cart with 8 GQ women. If you go on my old Flickr account, you can find the photo. And then we got to a roadblock of the Chinese army because they were looking for, I guess, separatists because it's in Xinjiang. Mm-hmm. So all these women that were like had things and scarves and shit, they were able to drive on, and they stopped me. And so then my Munneke, my last name, sense of security and danger was already like switched on. So I was like, okay, authority, I need to kick authority. And so then I was led into a room, and they started searching all my bag because I was backpacking by myself. So I was like in that room, and they were like looking through my stuff, and I was like, okay, well, that's fine, right? They're searching me, obviously this is nonsensical because I am like a white dude in Western China. I'm like the farthest away from the separatists from their perspective that I could be, but okay, let's not get into trouble. And then he started frisking me, and I was like, okay. And then he said to me, okay, lift your t-shirt. And I was like, okay, now we're getting off track with Koen, essentially. So I lifted my t-shirt, and then he started touching my chest hair. He was like,
what?
Yeah, so I was like, okay, now we've gone too far. And then at the same time as this guy was doing it, and he had like a star here, so I think it was like the senior guy, like the major or whatever he was. So then what I did was I went up, and he had his hand on my chest hair. He was like, ooh, like this. And then I lifted my hand, and I put my hand on his nipple, and I went like this. So we looked at each other, and then like this really junior soldier came in, and I will always remember, like, we were standing in this small room. He was touching my chest hair, I was touching his nipple, and this private guy came in. He was like, and then he gave my passport back, and he closed my bag, and he said, "Please get out of here." So yeah, that's me. Yeah, go off track with that, April. So this is one of the stories I will tell my grandkids endlessly.
I think that's a good story. I will tell them too if I have one like that. But luckily, I don't
it's
have
never too
one
late.
like that.
Find some nipples. Actually, don't do it. It's very dumb in retrospect, but yes.
How do you understand everything when you're in China?
I didn't.
Do you?
So I had like
all body language.
You know, so I had a small Mandarin dictionary. So this was in 2008 or 8, I think. So I had a small Mandarin dictionary, which sort of helped me into basic things. But like, no, like you just sort of like say sh and bush and doi, and you just hope you end up right. So no, like I would point things out and stuff. It was very DIY, as you would call it. So no. I mean, I'm a horrible person because I should speak either Cantonese or Mandarin better than I do, which is hardly at all. But no, that's how I survived it. Yeah.
It's amazing.
It's fun times. Yeah, for sure.
Okay, let's just ask some not so off track questions now.
Okay.
Yeah. So, what inspired you to start Intrinsic? Like, is there any story, like cool story, or oh, this is your dream to run a company, or where and how is this idea came from?
I think in the essence, I would say my personality and people. It sounds super lame, but I think like where we are today would have not been. I would have never, like, if people said, "Wow, that's such a niche. How did you get there?" My answer is, I know, right? Like, this is so like weird. Who even knew there was a huge industry there? Like, I mean, that's really when people say that, I understand it because I was there, and I think like advisors and the customers like just slowly allowed me to walk down the rabbit hole that got us where we are today. And I think so in that sense, like, I don't think there is much credit to where we are. I mean, I was coming from 3D printing. And I understood like the complications of bespoke production, so custom made things. I understood that really well because my first company was based on it. So I had that sort of in my toolkit, but then it was more about like, I wanted to do something with that because I think that in my personal life, I believe there's always a custom solution for everything. If you just try hard enough, you can find a special way to do things. And then I guess like I just kept talking to people. And then sort of like one thing led to another, and now we're here. So I think that is like honestly the evolution. It doesn't make any sense, but I'm happy we're here, where we are now. And I think on a personal level, like I just really I found out like I think like maybe 5, 6, 7, maybe 8 years ago that my personal driver, what gives me like what we call flow, is like just the process of solving problems. I like solving problems with people. So if you come to me with a problem, like you really have to say, Koen, I don't want to solve this explicitly. I just want to complain, because otherwise I will solve that problem with you because I am excited by all problems. So that's what I have friends. I literally ask them sometimes, like, okay, is this a thing you want me to help with? Or is this just you wanting to sort of like share your heart's content? And they say, oh, I just want to share my heart content. And I'm like, don't help. Don't do it. Because that's really what like drives me. And I think like being in a startup, like especially like founding one, that's what you're doing all day. Like I get pulled into meetings left and right with people, at least occasionally, that are looking for somebody to push through a solution. And that's what I like to do. So yeah, that's why people and personality, I guess.
Does anyone ever set a meeting with you to not like have a solution kind of meeting where it's just like, I would just want to rant to you about something kind of meeting? Has it ever happened
meeting
before?
With April?
I don't rant.
No, you don't rant. No, I think in a business context, usually people come to me for solutions, I think. But like, I think there's no, I think ranting is also negative, right? But I think more like sharing their challenges with me. So I think usually in reflection meetings, like I try to create an environment where people just can complain about anything or talk about anything. So, and as a result, like you get like conversations about like people, Ali, for example, your last guest, talking about his enjoyment of getting into first class lounges in airports, for example. Like that's what I talk to him about reflection meetings about sometimes, you know, like, and sometimes it's about really personal things, you know, like problem with families and people just share, right? And I try to dial down the helping during reflection meetings. I try. It's hard, but I try.
Okay.
So it's not rants.
just for the notes here, I don't think I rant.
No, you don't rant. We just go off track together. Even without the off track, we go off track. You've never ranted before. I agree. Yes, just sharing random things, I would say, which is fun.
Like now when I look at, even I have the Google Calendar open here, just so I know, okay, I didn't go off time and stuff. Then like your meeting is crazy, and with all the things you have to do outside of all the meeting and stuff, I believe and I know it should be really stressful, right? How do you manage stress for you? Do you think, or do you have any tips?
I cry in the corner. No. I think like the thing for me is that I only stress about things that I truly can't control. Mm-hmm. And I know we need, like, if I know I need to do better at something, but I genuinely can't do anything about it, those are the things that actually stress me. Mm-hmm. All the other things just exhaust me, and that is different. Like, like when I have meetings from 6 a.m. in the morning till 1 p.m., like back to back, like that is tiring, but it's not in that sense stressful, because we are trying to solve problems together, which I enjoy. So I think in that sense, like, I think I answered your second question at least, and your first. No, I answered your first question, and the second question was, any tips? I think like life is, you need to outsource the things that are stressful. I think that is one, like a tip, I guess. Like, so for me, I know that like I have like confirmed ADD. And so there is 101 things that are always going around in my head all the time, like if I don't do anything about it, right? So from my side, what I try to do, for example, is use tools like, whether that be in my case Asana or Roam Research, or I never write things down anymore, but I just try to write everything down as quickly as possible so I can let it go, so I know I can have peace of mind. So I think like prioritize and understanding, like using tools to not have to worry as much about the things that stress you out, is really helpful. And I think everybody has specific things that stress them out. So for example, like, I'm stressed, somebody's stressed out about due dates of their work, right? Just having like a good list of due dates and then talking very proactively about that, that releases stress, and you're sort of in this together with your coworkers, right? Hey, I have a due date coming up. I don't know if I can reach it. And then, for example, in your case, Hayden would say, like, let me help you. So I think everybody just, if you know your stress points, there are tools, whether that be social or technological, that allow you to sort of outsource, or at least put at ease the stress that it gives you. So I don't know if that's a tip, but that's what I try to do.
Yeah. Oh, do you rant to anyone?
All the time. Ask our tech lead. He's like, Koen rants.
Maybe I should do a second episode with Mark.
Yeah. Ask him. Yeah, no. I think, like, honest answer. Like, I think that I try not to. And I also always try to, even though I go very quickly, like as I'm somebody you can ask and I just go, I always try to bring myself back and frame my questions again and make sure that it's succinct. I don't always succeed at it, but I think like I rant for two reasons. Sometimes is one, because I'm super passionate and I just want, like, I'm like like this, and so I rant. And the second reason, I think, is I always want to be really, really sure that people actually understand what I'm talking about, even though I think it's quite obvious often. And so I keep repeating things because I'm just worried that people don't get it. Yeah, so I always tell my team, right, like, genuinely feel free to tell me that I'm ranting, because then I'll stop. And because I think it's a bad trait to have. But sometimes, yes, see, I'm ranting right now.
No, I don't consider that as ranting, but sometimes rant is actually a good thing. Like for me, if I don't finish anything, like if I just don't wash my cup after I wash it, then the picture of my auntie ranting when I was young, I don't finish things, will just come out, and I just have to go and wash it. Right now, I can't control it. Like it's just a side thing. Yeah, it's a good thing.
I think. ranting is good as long as it's strategic, right? Like, so I think that's with most things in life, like, or at least like, let's say, thought through, right? Like if you rant with everything, people are just like, oh my God, I have to sit through another Koen rant, right? But if something really goes wrong and you get a rant, you know that the rant represents the sides of the problem. And I think that I still could be better at so many things, but that is also definitely something I can improve on. For myself sometimes. Again, ask Moki your second off track.
When is the last time you rant? Do you remember?
The last time I ranted, which was tagged as a rant, I think was 2 weeks ago. I think like I was actually talking to somebody in the company about this just now before we started talking. It's like, I think ranting is also the result of a lack of organization, right? So if you're in a meeting where there's a very clear goal, which we all agree on, there's less room to rant because you just have to answer questions, right? But as soon as like there's no clear goal, there's a higher propensity for people that do rant to start ranting, because you actually just are filling time in a way by accident, right? So I think that is also something that, again, I try to work on with myself, but also with the team, to always have clear agendas and what are we trying to solve here, you know? But I'm sure how many rants do you remember me going on?
I don't think you ever rant, like at least for
really?
me. Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to go back to internal HR and get that official complaint lifted.
Maybe not for Mark, okay? I don't think Mark was
right. No. I think it's not too bad. Like I think, and I think people know that I know I'm imperfect and I try to do better. And I think I hope that is the common consensus in the company. So yeah.
From the very beginning with you, Ivan, and Ali, and now the team is growing so much bigger in such a fast time. Like I still remember, even when the time that I joined, our company is not as big now, right? Like, so how do you feel about it?
How do I feel about it?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, primarily I would say proud, because not because we have a certain number of people, but primarily because we've hired certain people that I think are really good people. So I think that is nice to see that, like, for some reason we have created an environment here as a company where cool people wanna herd together. I think that is nice.
Because cool people want to join cool people. No, I'm just joking.
Maybe that's for other people to say, right? But I think, like, I mean, we're all sort of imperfect in our own ways, but we try to do better, and I think that is sort of like the best you can do, right? So I think that just makes me, especially when people take the lead, when they take ownership, that's my most proud moment. My most proud moments if I'm in a meeting where I just see, like, teams, in absence of me saying anything, doing their stuff. I think that's really cool for me, because I like to see that, right? That's my favorite thing. Like, I have nothing to do here except for seeing you guys shine. And those are the proudest moments. And with a bigger team, like, there are bigger challenges, obviously, but you have that as well more. So that's pretty cool.
Okay. Then do you think that there's, I think of course there is, right, of a difference between the foreign, because now I'm Asian, so I would say the foreign, the Angmo way of working, of, like, based on you, right, the Asian working cultures and the non-Asian working culture. What do you think, like, is the difference is for you? Since now we have team members from so many different countries, right?
Well, I think that there's two sides to this answer. So on one hand, like, I personally don't like to talk in those sort of terms, because I want people to be themselves. And so as soon as I start talking about Asians do things this way or that way, there might be a lot of Asians that agree with that, like, and it might even be the majority, but I also want to give room for that single Asian that doesn't want to be that and always felt like it was a pressure on their shoulders to fit the Asian model, the stereotypical Asian model of work. So that's why for me, I don't really want to think in those terms, even though it's hard sometimes not to do so. I try not to do that because that's also how my parents raised me. But I think so for me, and that's exactly why we have a value that is inclusivity is our process, is that like, I do accept that your parents, April, were very different from my parents, very likely. And I'm sure that they also have many things in common, even though they are very different. And so that means by definition that we are different people, but that doesn't mean that we don't have things in common. And that also doesn't mean that we cannot learn from each other to be even better people. Like combine the experience of my parents with the experience of your parents. And as a result, like we become even better people than we were before, right? Exactly. So I think like, and that's why like it's a process, because I cannot expect people to take ownership or all these sort of things out of nowhere if that's not how they were raised, right? If you were raised as a child that should be submit themselves to authority, let's say, right? Then it's not easy for you to step up to your CEO and say, I think you're wrong, right? For this and that reason, right? So then you also have to understand that it's a process of getting people to align with our values. And I can also learn sometimes to just shut up and let it go, right? So so it's a mutual process, right? So I think what I want Intrinsic to be is a place where we rally people that are just a little bit off, right? They're just a little bit wonky if they would work in a fully Asian or in a fully Western company. They feel like, I want to have direct conversations, but at the same time, I also want to be able to sort of like take my time and do more of a sort of like a deliberative process where you talk to each other. And I think that like by learning from people that have different parents from who I have, I become a better leader because I can deal with diversity better. And at the same time, you get to deal with me and have somebody who is more straight to the point. I only think that the only challenge that you have with that sort of stuff is that in a startup, right, you're always dealing with deadlines and targets and things that are harsher than in more neutral companies. And I think we are really a startup in the essence of the word, like everything. Like we want to go hard, we're funded, and we need to go hard to hit our targets. And so sometimes that inclusivity process that might be lengthy, the time is not always there, because like in the reality is in the startup, right? Like any startup, like you usually have a runway, and if your runway runs out, then nobody has a job, right? So sometimes you just have to push harder and overstep boundaries because that's the urgency you have. Luckily, that's not an urgency we have now, but in my mind, I've dealt with that urgency for 8 years. So that's my mindset, because I've always been in companies where it is about to fall apart. You can bleep me there.
It's okay, we keep stuff real.
we can be real. So yeah, so that's sort of the daily struggle that you have, right? Keeping inclusivity as a process while understanding that there is a high level of pressure and urgency. So that's difficult, right? And I struggle. I think about those things all the time. How can we do better as a group, right? I think I answered your question.
So you still think that it doesn't stress you out, but it doesn't mean that it motivates you, but it doesn't stress you out, even though like all this thing?
No, because it's like, for me, this is like, it's not, I think stress is just a question of where you put pressure in which box you put it, right? So stress is sort of for me is like sort of the lack of capacity to deal with problems, right? So once a problem becomes too much, you become stressed out because of the overage that you have, right? The can of problems is full and you can't deal with them. So I have a very high rate of problem solving. So the only problem that I have is that if my cup is filled up with problems I can solve, then and that cup for me is actually very small. So like if I cannot deal with many things that I can't solve, right? I just go like, like, where are my house keys? Anger, like that sort of stuff. Like they don't exist anymore. I can get really angry like a 12-year-old, right? But with these sort of things, when it comes to culture, like it's just a constant thinking about how can I be a better person, and how can I make sure that on the one hand I respect my team, but on the other hand I also make sure that we are not aiming too low. And then you can never make everybody happy. Like one of our team members, who is actually in Malaysia, said to me once, like, at times everybody wants to be Mr. Nice Guy, but if you ever or Mr. Nice or Mrs. Nice Lady, and the reality is in a startup, right? Like if you work for like a big ass company, maybe that's true, but like in a startup, you just not everybody can always be nice. That's just not how it works. That the learning cycles are too short. The learning cycles are too long, and we need very fast cycles, right? So I think that is sort of the struggle.
So do you have a goal for the company? What is your goal for Intrinsic? Or you are not a goal type of person?
No. But my goal is not very intrinsic. No, that's cut. No. So what's my goal? I think like my personal goal is that like just build something amazing with amazing people, and I think my goal is to create the environment where I'm happy, which is like solving problems together. And because we listen to our customers, we solve problems in a way that we make the world a better place, because we're solving in healthcare, we're solving problems for people, right? So I think for me, that's sort of the thing. So as long as I can keep a company culture and also financials to make that the case, and people agree that we're solving a problem, which luckily they do, that's my only goal. And the cool thing about that is, right, the idea of problem solving is also, for example, how can we get April to grow as a UI UX designer? Like, how can what is the next thing she wants to learn, right? That's not like, that's in a way a problem, because we want to make sure that in the future that the solution for that challenge is there. And then so that's my process, right? And so in that sense, like, I want this to become bigger because I want to help more people. And then that requires obviously more funding and more revenue and more good employees. But that is really the thing, right? Like, I've never really cared about, like, I shouldn't say that to my investors, but I never really cared about exits or like being able to say that you have $100 million company. I've always just cared about making something, a process that is sustainable, that we can grow together. And the outcome of that is, hopefully, as a result, is that we have more customers, which makes us a $100 million company. But the point should never be, we want to be a $100 million company, because that sort of is like, what is it, like putting the wagon in front of the horse, right? What's the point? If we have a great company with great people with great products, more people will buy our product, right? Yeah. And as a result, the outcome is like cause and effect, right? So that.
Yeah, I'm just about to go off track, but I want to try not to. But
no, do it. Come on, this is off track with April. This needs to be off track.
I heard of this one theory. Is say it's not cause and effect, but then that theory believes that because you have the ending is already set, that's why the process is there. I don't know if I think that's it's interesting
in Europe. So I think that is sort of like what they call in social sciences. It's very different, but it's the same thing. It's sort of like the Protestant ethic. So Protestantism is like a strand of Christianity, right? Like Catholicism, Protestantism, and so what they say is that like the which is not fully true, but like an aspect of it is true, is that in Protestantism, like whether you end up in heaven or hell has already been decided. So the only thing you can do in your life is work really hard, and hopefully you can, like in a very minor way, influence the outcome. So that's sort of what you're saying, right? The end is already there. And it's just for us to work hard in the process of making our way there, right? So, I mean, there's many ways. Like, it's interesting. It's and there's another way of thinking about this to go even farther off track of your off track, is that some people say, which is a bit less philosophical, is that like when there is a result of something, an effect, that there's another sort of approach to this where they say the effect that anything has, we just do our best to find the causes for the effect. So for example, right, and it's actually, and there's also research that shows that about 70% of what we do is impulsive, and we essentially just make up reasons. We train ourselves to very, very, very quickly make up reasons why we did the impulsive thing and rationalize it before anybody could claim it's impulsive. So like, it's quite interesting to think about it that way, that like actually, so there's so many ways of thinking of why things happen and what we know. But I think like, for me, the important thing is like, I don't know where all this is going. Like, let's be honest, like, you know, great things can happen in the sense of intrinsic, right? Horrible things can happen, everything can happen. But I do think that like, I like to improve and solve problems with people, and I like to do that with people, and I like also people to be part of that journey, right? And as long as I don't live in a bubble where I think this is the reality and there's multiple people that actually confirm that I'm doing that, then by definition, we're gonna together build a good company, because we as people are trying to be better together and have a process of improvement. And as long as I don't act like this sort of solitary, crazy leader that just thinks that everything is going better while it's actually not, and history has many of those, then we are gonna be, whatever we do, we're gonna be better people at the end of this as a cause of this, or as an effect, right? Even if my goal is not necessarily to make you a better person, the process of how we work together will, right? So I can just be very simple. I have my process of problem solving, and I want to do that with people. And I think if I have a good team around me, the effect of that will be that you will become a better person.
Both, everyone.
Exactly, right?
Yeah.
Exactly. So that, right? So very philosophical, but yes.
One thing you wish you had known before you actually started the company?
One thing I wish I'd known before I started the company. My first company or this company?
This is not your first company? How?
My second company.
Really?
But let's stick with your question. So first one, the first time I ever started a company, you mean, or this company specifically?
Let's keep it the first one, like the very first. The one thing you wish you know before like you started this, like,
Right. I think the one thing, I guess, if you ask me my first company, is that like, if I like, let's say it differently. Can I say this? What would I say to myself if I would go back to the first time I started the company?
Yeah, can.
Right. I would go back and tell myself, little Koen, I was already big back then, but you know, I would say, Koen, you don't know anything, and that's your strength. That's what I would say to myself. So I think that like in my first company, I struggled a lot with that you have sort of jack of all trades and you have specific people. And that really hurt me sometimes, because I was just always looking for I always felt like being a jack of all trades is like weakness, because you can't really do anything very well. And then I figured out that like a jack of all trades is great if you're in the right position, and it's horrible if you're not. And I think in my first company, I was out of my position, and I tried, like I was like on hardware, but I was like COO, CPO. I did all sorts of stuff, and I always figured out that I was never really good at it because it involved too much detail. And I'm not good at the details. That's just what it is. So I think if I would have known that, I could have saved myself a lot of heartache. in my first company. And I still would have made all the mistakes because who listens to themselves? But I could have tried.
What do you think you will be doing now if Intrinsic doesn't exist? If I'm not here right now, what you'll be doing?
Wait. So it's a question, what would I literally be doing with my time right now in Intrinsic if this interview wasn't happening? Or what if Intrinsic and April don't exist?
Yeah, the second one.
What would I be doing?
Yeah. Career-wise, I don't know. Like it can be anything. If Intrinsic doesn't exist.
Right. I think like for me, like if Intrinsic didn't exist and I have all the knowledge, or quote unquote all the knowledge I have today, I'd probably be in a startup somewhere. And I do sometimes like, and maybe like, I do have a curiosity about like joining a startup. Like it sounds really weird. Like not if I was not in a startup right now, but I had the knowledge I have, because I think like I would have my experience of Intrinsic that suddenly disappeared in my first company. And I am like curious, like how other companies actually do it, because I've never really had like aside from people talking to me and giving me feedback about how I do things, I've never really had an objective comparison because I've never been in other people's startups before. So I'd be very curious how they work with values, how structured they are, because I've heard a lot of horror stories about like culture not existing, about people saying they're structured and they're not structured at all. And it's just like sort of like a free for all. So I would just like, for better or for worse, I would like to see how it actually works, like nuts and bolts in a different company. I think so. I would be in startups because I love solving problems, and I don't deal well with hierarchies that make no sense, which I think a lot of corporate is all about. People are more focused on defending their position, and they're often doing the right thing for the people that they serve, which I think this is like a stereotype I have of corporate because I've never done it, but that's the feeling I have. And I think doing the right thing for the people you work with and your customers should always be the thing you do. And it shouldn't matter if you are the CEO of a company or a fresh hire. You know, like in that sense, we are all the same. And I think in corporate, like even now that we're with 15, 16 people, I see that sometimes that people talk to me as a CEO. And I think we should all have respect for each other. And I want to help because I want to help you, not because I own the company, right? So I think that would be something I would like to experience. And all my investors have said, if you ever go into corporate, you would probably off yourself within like 3 months because you would just hate the dynamic. But I think I would want to see that. I would not like, I am just too much of the habitual line stepper, I think. Like people will be like, oh my God, Koen is coming for my job, or shit like that. Yeah, so I don't think I'd survive, but I would like to see it, right? I want to go to see the apocalypse. Well, maybe I'm wrong, right? So I'm not sure, but maybe I'm wrong. And I always like to be wrong if I learn something new, right? So in that sense, man, I guess.
What is the last thing you learn when you are wrong? You're wrong? Does it make sense?
The last time I learned that I was wrong.
And it teaches you something.
Going on a rant. Every day, yesterday. I don't actually every day learn. I always learn. I think on a daily basis, if I would really sit down and think about it, I learn on a daily basis how to do things better. I think like, for example, like, I learned yesterday for myself that I was like, in Intrinsic, like we always need to have people that are even more driven. But at the same time as well, I have done that occasionally in a non-scalable way, which stretches me, but also takes ownership away from other people. I haven't explained you the context of this story, so it might sound a bit weird, but like, so the core of the story is that like, on the one hand, yes, I am extremely driven and I want to get stuff done. But if I do that by myself, we are building a non-scalable business. So I learned for myself that I need to take, in some way, sometimes a step back in order to give people time to learn, to also do that in my absence. And my impatience stops me from doing that sometimes, because I'm impatient, as you probably know.
You actually have a... I don't think you have an impatience.
Okay, then we need to have more meetings with each other. I think I'm generally known for being impatient. But
or maybe I do, but then I just forgot about it.
Yeah, you're like, oh my god, I'm on a vlog right now, and if I say that, no, I think I'm impatient, and that's also a good thing, in like everything, right? It's good and the bad. But yeah, so yeah, no, I make mistakes all the time, and with a team that tells you make mistakes, you can make small corrections, and as a result, they are not like dangerous mistakes. And I think that's why in Intrinsic we love communication, right? If you tell me that you've made a mistake, it's much better, because then we can fix it together before it sort of becomes a giant cluster. There we go. Have another one. And I think that's sort of like, so I mean, we all make mistakes. I think like the biggest mistake to make is to think you are not supposed to make mistakes. The biggest mistake is not communicating about them. I think that's the biggest mistake in life, not communicating about your mistakes in your personal life, in your professional life. But then you have to be in a company where it's okay to make mistakes. And in Intrinsic, if you are communicative about it, I believe that you are welcome to make mistakes if you learn from them quickly. Yes, I believe that. That's up for other people to say. We can do a survey.
Yeah, I think sometimes you think about like, oh, company. I'm not saying all the company, like, but people will think like, oh, the company hire you to expect you to not to make mistake and make the business work. So maybe we should just give this section to other people to listen to, so they are not afraid.
Right.
Like if they actually make mistake and you'll be like, oh, now I'm going to, and you just start to freak out and all this stuff. But yeah, that's that.
Right. But that's also like to add to that for a second, right? So that's where the complexity of management comes in. Like the feeling of mistakes not being allowed is a cultural issue, right? Like as in like a company culture. Like if for example, right, like as you know, in Intrinsic we deal with OKRs. So if you go to your employee or your junior staff member, and you go at the end of the quarter, you say, well, April, you've messed everything up. Then essentially I'm just saying it's your fault, right? And so you will be afraid to speak up and to take responsibility for things, because we are not there in the process with you. So mistakes become bad because a mistake leads to a punishment, right? But if you try to, which is not easy, create a culture where you're welcome to come and talk to us about things that are not working well, you find out that like a mistake is an opportunity to do better and not a reason for punishment. And I think that is sort of like, especially people that come from corporate, it's very hard to change that mindset, because they have come from an industry where a manager reports to another manager, and if they don't hit their numbers, they get shit, so they shit downwards on you. And I think at the end of the day, like, listen, if you're not doing your job and you're not communicating well, then you should get shit on. I think that's my position. But if you really try your best, you've communicated how you've tried your best, then I as a manager should be proud of you, even if it doesn't work out, right? And I think that is like something that I guess we're trying to correct in Intrinsic, or at least I'm trying to, and hopefully somewhat successfully, that people know that whenever they have a problem, I'm always here to help. I'm just not here to help if you don't talk to me about your problems, because then I'm like, yeah, then it's your own, then it's you. You have these tools to do better and you're not taking them, right? And that also takes, again, right, inclusivity is our process. So heavy on the values, but yeah.
I actually have a question, but I just forgot about them. It's okay.
Those are usually interesting questions.
Yeah.
Another one. Come on, hit me.
Is there any questions you wish that people would ask you, but they never did?
You mean in the company?
It can be anything.
Anything.
Or why not you say one that is like not related to the company and one which is like company related.
Can I be a politician and not answer your question with another question? With another answer, sorry?
No, don't be a politician.
So the thing is that, like, for me, I think I would generally say people should ask why more. I think, like, with me in life, I think like people should always ask, why do you want this? Or why do you think this is a good idea? Like, and that's not like in a way of challenging, like, but if you have a suggestion, you should be able to honestly say, well, it's just a mind fart, or it's an actual structural plan. I think that is, for me, I don't have specific questions that I feel like people do or don't ask me. And for me personally, it's also like, you know, like, questions are very situational, right? Like, a very valuable question can be really valuable now, and it can be completely meaningless 3 months from now, right? So I think it's more about like continuously asking each other why. Like the Backstreet Boys, tell me why. I support the Backstreet Boys. About a heartache. Yeah, exactly. Tell me why. Man, how we need to get more lines. But anyway, that's a different discussion. That's really for all my Backstreet Boys fans, you know what I'm talking about. So I think that's more of a question. I think everybody, whenever something happens, when you say to somebody, why are you asking question X, right? There's two sides to it. First of all, you understand what I'm really asking for. You get confirmation. And second of all, I know you heard me because you actually repeated my question back to me. And I think those two things create more empathy and also a better answer. You understand? Does it make sense?
Yeah.
So that, I think people should ask more whys and repeat people's questions.
Why do you ask me? Does it make sense?
Oh, well, a very simple answer. Why do I ask? Does it make sense?
Oh yeah.
Because I heard that it's my tagline that I stole from somebody else. So in that sense, I'm not very original. Why do you ask that question? Why do you ask? Does it make sense? For several reasons. One of them is that allows you to think. It allows you to disagree, and it also shows empathy. So like, if I say, does it make sense? Like, I by definition already assume, at least I'm verbally showing, that I could be wrong. So whatever I just said could be completely wrong because I ask you, does it make sense or not? And that gives, and it also gives you the chance to say it makes no sense. So I think that's what, like, somebody told me that in Silicon Valley, actually, when I was working there at 500 startups. That was like, there's a lot of advice I never listened to, but there was one guy, he goes by the name, I should give him credit, Robert Navert. He's like a mentor.
Can you give me his picture so I can edit it here?
I can, yeah. Ding, 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 ding. You could advertise for 500 startups. I'm not sure. I think he's still at 500, but I'm not sure. But he taught me that line. Does it make sense? He always said it. Like, so maybe like one day, assuming I outlive him, I can pass on, but does that make sense to another generation of entrepreneurs? But he taught me that when I was in 500. He taught me and my former co-founder that, actually. And clearly you can see that I've taken it to heart because I'm asking it all the time.
Yeah.
It's like, it's in my DNA now.
I think it started to influence me as well because I heard it from so many different people. First is Ivan, and then I heard it from Ali, and then now I'm just starting to like unconsciously saying, does it make sense?
Right. But it's great. It's great. Otherwise, I think I wouldn't have picked it up. Like, I think it's great. It really fundamentally allows people time to respond, especially if you're like quick. I like to think I'm occasionally quite quick, at least. It really forces me to slow down as well. So it even stops yourself. So that's actually number 4. It stops yourself as well from ranting.
Let's put it as the last questions.
Last question.
Your favorite day of the weekday, and your favorite section, like Does that make sense?
Right.
Yeah. Favorite day in
the
person.
section part? What do you mean section?
You like this very specific meeting a lot, or
right.
Favorite sections. No lunchtime, okay? No.
6 p.m. Let me think. So I think like, first of all, the first question is which day. So I think I'm lucky to say that this sounds both negative and positive, but every day is the best and the worst day, because every day is challenging and every day is exciting. And I do have to say, I really enjoy, I'm going to say something different, because everybody says 15 at 15, and I do really enjoy 15 at 15. But I actually think that like, I really enjoy my sales team meetings. Mm-hmm. So I would say if this is like me being like one of those like anti-authority figures, if nobody or less people would say 15 at 15, I would just say 15 at 15, because I think 15 at 15 is great. But because I am a counter authority figure, I will say my sales team meetings.
Why?
And the reason why is that so I'm not talking to this in relation to other people, right? Mm-hmm. But I think in the sales team, I have like, I deal with them most, right? Like I deal with everybody, but most of all with my sales team. Mm-hmm. And I think we have a team of very positive-minded people from different walks of life that are all sort of like, we just like, our sales team meetings are generally just a mess. In the sort of in the fun way. You should join sometime, it's really fun. And we just like we talk shit to each other, but we try to help each other. Everybody is really like driven to do their thing. For example, we have a new joiner called Irvan. He only works with us for 9 weeks. So for example, right, Irvan, he joined us like 9-10 weeks ago. Super inquisitive guy, super dry sense of humor. And so like, and he has all these funny questions, and he always starts every time he talks with hello. And then you're just sort of like, he just waits exactly long enough to make it awkward, which is hilarious. And then we have Michael, who just joined us as well, who is super driven and just like really pragmatic. We have Hazel, who is like so much corporate experience and now sort of is enjoying the freeing of her corporate shackles in a startup. So she's sort of like not off track, but definitely off the leash. And then we have Willem Jan, who makes jokes that are only acceptable in Holland, and as a result sort of crack everybody else up. So I also want to add like Hazel, for example. She loves showing off her PPT presentations, which is like the inside joke in sales, that whenever we have any conversation, we ask Hazel to make a presentation about it. So yeah, we just talk shit, but at the same time we get shit done, and everybody's super inquisitive. Mm-hmm. So I really enjoy my sales meetings. Yeah. But honestly, I will end with a lame answer. I enjoy most of the meetings. Like any meeting we're in, which is most of them people that are trying to do better and try to solve problems, I enjoy. Mm-hmm. I just hate meetings where that is not the case. And then I just sit there like, I need to kick somebody's ass. Let's do this, you know? But luckily that is less and less the case. So that's good.
Do you have a hint? Like, do you have any, I don't know how to say it, like a symptom where people can tell? I know.
You can tell me, I guess.
The bracelets, right?
I try to use my bracelet, and I go like this. This is like from, I bought this in Hong Kong, so I start counting it to stop. Actually, I have a note on my note-taking system, which actually reminds me to not be a bad person.
Oh, really?
But no, I think I want people to be respectful of each other's time and get to the point. So like for me, like in absence of anybody giving purpose to a meeting explicitly, the purpose will become, we're going to solve a problem if I'm in that meeting. Mm-hmm. So if you say to me, Koen, we're going to brainstorm, I'll ask, do I need to be here? And then the answer is yes, I'll brainstorm with you. But we need to get somewhere. Mm-hmm. And if I don't see anybody trying to get somewhere, especially if they're trying to be Mr. or Mrs. Nice Guy Girl, then I will be not so Mr. Nice Guy, because we need to move, right? I think that's sort of for me. So as soon as I'm in a meeting where people are just like tree hugging each other too much, you will see me go like, I will start interrupting people more, which is very bad trait, by the way. But I go like, yes, okay, because I'm like, let's go. You know, we're not walking in the park here. This is a marathon. This is a sprint. Let's go. You know. So I think that's the more I start interrupting, the more impatient I get. I think that's maybe a good one. So for you, for our next meeting.
Yeah, this is what I'm going to say. Like whenever I'm in a meeting, this is what I am going to notice from now on. Like, okay, what are you doing now? Okay, is it impatient?
This is not off track with April. This is like April psychoanalyzing her boss just to optimize her performances in the company. That's what it is.
All right, thank you, Koen, for joining our off track episode today. It was really, really fun to have you with us.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, and thank you for going so off track with me.
I love it. Okay. There's no off track I'd rather be than with you. There we go.
Oh, all right. So if you guys enjoyed this episode, or if you guys are here, please don't remember to subscribe or like the episode. And we'll see you guys next time. Bye bye.